You're not exhausted because you're working too hard. You're exhausted because your life is built wrong. Same hours, same effort, different people. One thrives, one breaks. So what's the difference? Not discipline, not talent, design. Because burnout doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from doing too much of what drains you, in a system that was never built to support you. And the dangerous part? Most people wear that exhaustion like a badge of honor. They call it hustle. But hustle that destroys you isn't ambition. It's misalignment. And misalignment, repeated daily, becomes burnout. Slow, quiet, invisible, until one day, you can't think clearly, you can't focus, you can't even explain what's wrong. You just know something feels off. That's not weakness. That's a system failure. Because if your structure is broken, no amount of motivation will save you. You can't outwork bad design. Let that sink in. Most people don't have a work ethic problem. They have a design problem. They wake up and react. They work without priority. They consume without direction. They rest without recovery. And then they wonder why they feel drained. It's not random. It's engineered. Just not consciously. So let's break it. Because once you understand this, you stop blaming yourself. And you start rebuilding your system. First shift, energy before time. Most people plan their day around time blocks. 9 a.m. work, 12 p.m. break, 3 p.m. meeting. Looks organized. But it ignores one thing. Your energy isn't constant. You have peaks, you have crashes, you have windows where you're sharp, and windows where you're barely functional. But if your hardest work is scheduled during your lowest energy, you're not working. You're forcing. And forcing creates friction. Friction creates fatigue. Fatigue creates burnout. So the micro shift is simple. Align your hardest work with your highest energy. Not when the clock says. When your brain is ready. Because when energy and effort align, work stops feeling heavy and starts feeling sharp. That's design. Now, here's where most people get it wrong. They think burnout comes from working too long. It doesn't. It comes from working without closure. You start something, you get interrupted, you switch tasks, you leave things unfinished, and your brain, it keeps those loops open. Constantly. That mental load is what drains you, not the hours, the unfinished cycles. So, here's the second shift, close loops. Finish small tasks fully, define clear endpoints, stop leaving everything in progress. Because every open loop is a silent weight on your mind. And over time, that weight becomes exhaustion, not physical, cognitive. You feel tired, even when you haven't done much. That's not laziness, that's overload, and most people never fix it. They just push harder, which makes it worse. Now here's something uncomfortable. You don't need more discipline. You need fewer decisions. Every day you make hundreds. What to wear, what to eat, what to start, what to avoid. And each decision costs energy. So by the time you reach the work that matters, you're already depleted. That's not a motivation issue. That's decision fatigue. So the third shift, automate the small things. Standardize your mornings. Simplify your choices. Remove unnecessary options. Because when you reduce decisions, you preserve energy. And preserved energy is what allows consistency. Not willpower, systems. Now listen carefully, because this is where burnout hides. You think rest means stopping. It doesn't. Scrolling isn't rest. Watching endlessly isn't recovery. That's stimulation. And stimulation doesn't recharge you. It drains you differently. So you rest, but you don't recover. And the next day, you feel just as tired. So you assume you need more rest. But what you actually need is better recovery. That's the fourth shift. Design real recovery. Silence, movement, stillness, sleep without distraction. Moments where your brain isn't processing input. Because recovery isn't about escape. It's about reset. And without reset, burnout becomes permanent. Now here's where identity gets exposed. Most people tie their worth to output. If they're not producing, they feel guilty. If they're resting, they feel behind. So they push, even when they're empty. That's not ambition. That's insecurity disguised as work ethic. And it's one of the fastest paths to burnout. So the fifth shift, detach your identity from constant output. You are not your productivity. You are the system that creates it, and systems need maintenance. If you ignore that, you don't become elite, you become fragile. High output, low sustainability. Looks impressive until it collapses. Now, here's the truth most people avoid. You don't burn out from working hard. You burn out from working without control. Too many obligations, too many expectations, too little ownership. So you feel trapped, even if you chose this path. That contradiction creates stress. And stress, over time, becomes exhaustion. So the sixth shift, take back control. Say no more often. Remove unnecessary commitments. Stop saying yes to things that drain you. Because every yes is a cost. And if you don't measure that cost, you pay with energy. And eventually, with burnout. Now the final shift, and this one changes everything. Most people treat their life like a checklist. Tasks, goals, deadlines. But they never step back and ask, does this structure even make sense? They optimize inside a broken system. Faster, better, harder, but still broken. So the seventh shift, redesign. Don't just optimize. Look at your life like an architect. What needs to be removed? What needs to be rebuilt? What doesn't belong anymore? Because improvement without redesign is just more efficient suffering. And that's where most people stay. Busy, tired, stuck. Not because they're incapable, but because they're operating inside a system that guarantees burnout. Now here's the part no one tells you. Fixing this doesn't feel exciting. It's not a breakthrough moment. It's quiet adjustments, small changes, repeated daily. But over time, your energy stabilizes, your focus sharpens, your work improves, and suddenly, what used to exhaust you feels manageable. What used to overwhelm you feels structured. And what used to control you no longer does. That's when you realize something. You were never the problem, the design was. And once you fix the design, you don't just avoid burnout, you become sustainable, consistent, clear, in control. And that's rare, because most people will keep chasing hustle. They'll keep glorifying exhaustion. They'll keep breaking themselves for systems that were never built to support them. But you? Now you see it, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. So the question is simple. Will you keep pushing inside a broken system, or will you step back, rebuild it, and finally operate the way you were meant to? Because real power isn't working harder. It's working in a way that doesn't destroy you. If this changed your perspective, subscribe, because the next video might change your life.